Good day everyone, Complaining Gamer here. Let's take a very short trip down memory lane. We are going to take a look at Cemu, a Wii U emulator for PC, more specifically how it emulates The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and the progress it's made since its launch. Ever since I started covering the emulation of Breath of the Wild, my channel blew up, and the first video I did on this topic was on March the 18th. Now of course Breath of the Wild was released on March the 3rd, and at that point in time we were on Cemu version 1.7.3D. Good day everyone, Complaining Gamer here. What I've got for you is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on PC. Now looking back just 3 short months, the progression has been absolutely stunning. In the world of emulation, having a game run just 1 to 2 weeks after its release is simply unheard of. Here's the thing, not only was Breath of the Wild booting, it was very playable. I must say it is quite interesting to look back just a few months and see how we were doing things. For example, we were using cheat engine and not fence skip to try and improve FPS. We were using huge 15,000 count shader caches which were just made of trash. Soft locks were happening when clearing camps. Cutscenes didn't play, whereas now they do thanks to a community member and Cemu hook. The camera would also get stuck in shrines at times. The list was endless back then, and in just a few short minutes we'll jump to the current version of Cemu today, 1.8.1b, and talk about the sheer progress it has made compared to 1.7.3d. For those of you who have forgotten or simply weren't using Cemu back in March, one of the standout characteristics of 1.7.3D was the fact that Link and the NPCs would simply sink halfway into the ground. At that time, collision physics was broken, and this was also affecting things like water, where it would make no physical contact, and of course, who can forget the missing blades of grass? At the time, Breath of the Wild was not completable due to some gameplay mechanic limitations such as, and let me remind you, there were runes which did not work. For example, magnesis, stasis, and the camera were not usable and led to mission progress being limited. For now, let's jump to the current version of Cemu 1.8.1b, where most but not all of these issues have been fixed. Breath of the Wild is the most comprehensive we have seen it thus far, and perhaps in the future I can produce a historical detailed timeline about how it has developed in Cemu, but as I say, that's a potential project down the line. If we look at the game today within Cemu and how far it has come in such a short time, it is surely some kind of record in the world of emulation. Where we sit now, there is nothing limiting gameplay other than your own hardware. All of the aforementioned issues are gone and the game can be completed start to finish. Does this mean Cemu is perfect? No, not at all. This is where the quest for perfect emulation comes in. The team behind the emulator claimed that their main motivation is doing everything they can to achieve this goal. Before we continue, I highly recommend that you watch The History of Dolphin, a Wii and GameCube emulator. It is truly fascinating and eye-opening to some of the potential realities of developing software attempting to mimic hardware. I'll include a link in the description below. What that content also does is show those of you who are new to emulation how long some people have waited to see a project come to fruition or simply reach a point of widespread usability. Another comparison which makes Cemu an incredibly impressive achievement given its short life so far. Very few things can grow without community support and interest, and one of the ways people have shown their devotion to Cemu is through Patreon donations. This has been both a curse and a blessing. It is incredibly important that I state that Cemu is free, but if you want 7 days early access to a build, you can do that through Patreon support of $5 a month. The problem is, when you involve money, regardless of it being voluntary, people suddenly feel entitled and arguments ensue. Many users have individual desires, and it is of course impossible to please everyone. There is without doubt that the release of Breath of the Wild saw a huge upsurge in Cemu interest, therefore Patreon contributions. This caused a secondary issue where the community felt that earning arguably too much for a project would turn passion into greed and lead to a decrease in progress and productivity. Thus far, that has not been the case. Cemu has its advantages and disadvantages. Currently, as it stands today regarding Breath of the Wild, the hardware requirements are quite ridiculous. Cemu is officially advertised as needing a minimum of 64-bit Windows 7 or higher, an AMD or Nvidia GPU that has OpenGL 4.0 support, and 4GB of RAM, but ideally an AMD or Nvidia GPU with OpenGL 4.5 support and 6GB of RAM is recommended. What is not stated is the CPU requirements. This is where you're a bit left out in the cold to discover this answer for yourself. Regarding Breath of the Wild and given countless hours experimenting and consulting, it is my opinion that to reach a performance status that a person can be happy with, you will need a minimum clock speed of 3.5 GHz with 8 GB of RAM and an NVIDIA GPU. This is a very safe generalization based on endless hours of experience. Anything below what I've just stated, then you can expect a decline in user experience on the current Cemu build. In terms of AMD GPUs and some CPUs, compatibility has been a long-standing problem which I expect to be ironed out in time, but considerable patience is required. If we momentarily talk about other titles, then all of a sudden you don't need a behemoth of a machine and things become a bit more reasonable. The issue is Breath of the Wild and optimization. It is a title which is extremely demanding and currently excludes many from a playable experience due to their hardware. As a reference, the footage on screen is from my own captured gameplay and you will find my PC specs in the description below. Issues which do persist as we speak are based around sound and graphical glitches, particularly found on AMD GPUs. Cemu in itself is intriguing and an enthusiast's dream, but it also crosses over into the mainstream, so conflict across the community along with the introduction of new members to the world of emulation is basically guaranteed. This is where things become confused because people want quick, simple solutions without having to do any work themselves, and given the society we have today, entitlement and quick gratification have become the norm. If that expectation is not met, then you suddenly see dummies flying all over the place. When dealing with experimental software, bugs, annoyance and partial disappointment come with the territory. The biggest danger is the expectation of a perfect experience out of the gate. Cemu does still have many bugs which need to be ironed out, and given the developer commitment so far, I do expect them to be given enough time. The emulator does crash sporadically and often without warning or explanation. If Cemu is going to maintain community support, then certain issues definitely need to disappear over time, specifically crashes. Also, I would personally love to see Cemu reach a wider audience through optimization and lower hardware requirements. It currently eats up too much RAM and too much of the CPU to be viable for many. This is another area which I hope will come with more accurate emulation and software optimization. One of the biggest changes that we witnessed recently was the complete restructuring of the shader cache system, which in turn led to reduced RAM usage and decreased compilation times, a much welcomed improvement. A huge challenge for the developers of Cemu is the balancing act any emulator faces when addressing bugs, and that is one fix can break 5 other things. Sometimes it takes a community of Sherlock Holmeses to report said issues and help grow the emulator. As with any human interaction, when you have a group of differing opinions, you can be sure that some are guaranteed to become salty. When it comes to Breath of the Wild and Cemu version 1.8.1b, the only game mechanic which is currently missing is the ability to display images you take with the camera. This does not affect picture-based missions, only the ability to show the images you took. Cutscene playback is provided courtesy of Cemu Hook, and improved FPS comes in the form of fence skip. The definitive version of the game is still found on console for now, but Cemu is catching up quickly. In its latest iteration, we saw the introduction of many missing graphical effects such as fog, smoke and particles. This has greatly enhanced the environment visually, with the benefit of having little to no impact on performance, which was a concern in the past. If you really want to nitpick, and I think we should, you may also notice that your saves do not have images. The potential of Breath of the Wild in Cemu is huge. We have already seen what's possible, such as 4K or ultra-wide gaming. With future mods, anything is achievable from 60 FPS to netplay, and let me remind you once again, Cemu is absolutely free. What remains is overall compatibility and optimization to reach that user experience people desire. Both of those things require time and a lot of it. Cemu has just 2 developers, so put their achievements into perspective given the age of Cemu and the quality of emulation provided. It is quite spectacular. To finish, I would like to say that please only download Cemu and related content from trusted sources, both for Cemu itself and graphic packs. I will provide the links in the description below. Remember, Cemu contains no games and does not promote piracy. So that's it for now, my friends. I've been The Complaining Gamer. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed the content, take care, and I'll see you next time.